Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, Zuma is off the hook. The South African president survives an impeachment vote in Parliament as ruling party lawmakers rally round. Criticism of the leader skyrocketed since he was slammed by a constitutional court ruling last week. Also, Kenya's deputy president sees the International Criminal Court drop crimes against humanity charges brought against him. William Ruto had been accused of orchestrating deadly post-electoral violence in 2007. And in an ironic return, the priceless Timbuktu manuscripts that were taken from Spain to Mali half a millennia ago because of religious intolerance are returned to Europe because of concerns of contemporary religious extremism. Well, first, Jacob Zuma has survived an impeachment vote in South Africa's parliament. It was called after the president was hauled over the coals by the Constitutional Court last week for failing to repay millions of state funds spent on his private home. Well, despite growing calls for his exit from the opposition, the ruling ANC party rallied round Zuma on Tuesday, rejecting the impeachment motion. Aisha Ishmael tells us more.
A motion in South Africa's parliament to have President Jacob Zuma removed from office has failed. 143 members of parliament voted for and 233 voted against. And while ANC members supported Jacob Zuma, ANC stalwarts have called on him to step down. One of them, Dennis Goldberg, who was a co-accused in the Rivonia trial with Nelson Mandela.
But this is not what we fought for, where a select group of politicians would vote themselves high living standards in a country where there is massive poverty. I would like to see my ANC, that I have been a member of and supported for so long, take the courage to say, Comrade Zuma, you have done things that have damaged our organization. Either resign or we order you to step down. Because that would clear the air and restore the respect of the ANC in the eyes of the whole of South Africa.
Opposition parties are now meeting to decide on the way forward. They say they will not stop until President Jacob Zuma has been removed from office.
Aisha Ishmael there for us. Now, Democratic Republic of Congo is moving forward with the first trial of peacekeepers suspected of sexually abusing civilians in Central African Republic. Meanwhile, authorities here have launched another investigation into French troops accused of exploiting those they were sent to protect in the Central African Republic.
It's the third sexual assault probe France has had to direct at its soldiers in the Central African Republic. Wave after wave of alleged victims have come forward and accused peacekeepers of various nationalities since a sexual abuse scandal first erupted in the Central African Republic 2 years ago. Foreign soldiers were deployed there to help end sectarian violence. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, the first trial of Congolese suspects began this week. The soldiers have traded their uniforms for prison gear. All pleaded not guilty.
Our client is charged with rape in the Central African Republic, was charged with rape. In today's hearing, the question was, what is the evidence against our client?
The 21 men will all be tried in groups of 3. The process could take months. For NGOs, the proceedings are crucial.
This is the first step towards ending impunity, to show that there are consequences for such behavior.
On top of the 69 other cases that came to light this year, the UN is investigating 108 new sexual abuse allegations leveled against peacekeepers last week. Most of those involved are children they were supposed to protect. Demonstrating the truth will be more difficult without their testimonies.
Well, for the second time in going up against Kenya's top politicians, the International Criminal Court has had to admit defeat in its prosecution attempts. Like his president before him, Kenya's number 2, William Ruto, has had the crimes against humanity charges he faced in the Hague court dropped. Judges terminated the case, citing lack of evidence of fatal orchestration of post-electoral violence in 2007. They did state the lack of evidence could have been down to witness tampering and political meddling. A case against leader Uhuru Kenyatta collapsed on similar grounds in 2014. Well, Julia Steers joins us now with more. Julia, is this the victory that it appears to be for Kenya? Is this the end of it for William Ruto?
Well, that is certainly how the Jubilee ruling party is spinning it here tonight. President Kenyatta has issued a statement saying that the decision is the end of a nightmare for Kenya. But legally speaking, it's important to note that it's not an acquittal and that the case could be reopened if the prosecution finds sufficient evidence to do so. It's also important to note, though, that the likelihood of the prosecution finding sufficient evidence to do so is relatively low in the context of the case being dropped amidst allegations of witness tampering and bribery of certain witnesses. So it's unlikely they'll be able to mount this evidence. And also, the case against President Kenyatta 2 years ago was dropped for the same reason. And 2 years later, even though it could have been reopened, we've yet to see it be reopened. So legally speaking, it's not quite the end, but it's feeling very final tonight here in Kenya.
So how is this decision being greeted in the country itself?
Well, as to be expected, it's being greeted largely split along party lines. The ruling party politicians are issuing celebratory statements in support of Ruto and Kenyatta. And there are large celebrations in Ruto's rural hometown of Eldoret here tonight. But there's a real sense amidst reform-minded politicians, amidst young people, and an outcry on social media that, this is a case that is unfinished, that the ghosts of those people killed in the 2007 election, the post-election violence then killed 1,200 people here in Kenya. So there's a real feeling that without justice, there's no moving forward. And I expect there'll continue to be an outcry going into next year, which is another election year here. There's a sense of disappointment that 10 years on, the end of this case really solidifies the fact that nothing has been done here to move forward.
Thanks very much. Julia Steers there for us in Nairobi. Well, motorists in parts of Nigeria are growing increasingly frustrated by ongoing fuel shortages. Drivers have been sleeping in their cars and traffic come to a standstill across Lagos and Abuja as huge queues inch forward around petrol stations. The state oil firm has struggled to bring in enough petrol imports as the slump in oil prices has hit the country's economy and dried up the dollar supplies needed to purchase them. Nigerians say that the crisis had a huge impact on their livelihoods.
You can see I wake up 1 o'clock in the morning. Since yesterday night, I was here on the queue. No petrol. My boss called me almost about 3 times now. No way. One of my fellow colleagues lost his job because of this queue.
We are used to suffering and smiling, like Pela said. So whatever comes of it, we should just all bear it temporarily till everything comes fine.
If I had fuel very early in the morning and I just take off to my office, by now I would have settled down. So instead of settling down by 7, I'm going to settle down by 10. So obviously I have lost 3 hours that would have been of productive use for Nigeria.
Well, the priceless Timbuktu manuscripts are finally back in Spain, more than 500 years after they left. In one of history's ironies, after religious intolerance drove the documents from Spain, similar extremism has forced this precious collection out of Africa and back to Europe. Our correspondents report.
When jihadists captured Timbuktu, the Kati family fled, taking these ancient manuscripts with them back to Spain. Ali Ben Ziyad, a Muslim nobleman from Toledo, started this collection of writings in the 15th century.
These were the manuscripts that the family used to have in the library at the Toledo Mosque. And it's this library that was taken out of Toledo and sent on its way to Africa to save it because of the Christian intolerance back then.
Collected over years, the manuscripts are made up of more than 12,000 documents and are historically invaluable.
We've got one manuscript from Ceuta, a manuscript from Egypt, and a manuscript from southern Algeria, the biography of the Prophet.
Ismail is in charge of conserving this treasure. When Timbuktu fell into the hands of jihadists in 2012, he sent the manuscripts to friends in Mali and fled to Spain.
Whether we're Christian or Muslim, we can both be intolerant, and the Kati Foundation Library bears witness to the constant extremism of different religions and different cultures.
While most of the manuscripts are now being kept in safe places in Bamako, about a dozen are in Andalusia, where they're being painstakingly restored and analysed.
You can see, for instance, that in this treatise on mathematics, the main problem is we've lost large parts of the book because of humidity.
The documents will be numbered, translated and studied. They'll then be exhibited in cities in southern Spain before travelling to Toledo and perhaps one day to Timbuktu, if calm ever returns to the jewel of the desert.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa. Thanks very much for joining us, and please do so again if you can. Take care.
Revisited. April 21st, 1960, Brazilia is declared the new capital of Brazil. In less than 4 years in the heart of the Amazon jungle, it becomes a symbol of modern, futuristic architecture. An utopian political project promising a better life and jobs for all. But time has taken its toll on the capital city. Social and economic inequalities, transportation problems, overpopulation are pushing the city to the brink. For so many inhabitants, the promise of those early days appears distant. Has Brazilia lost the power to inspire?
Revisited on France 24 and France24.com.